Hi everybody, this is Dan Stolbarger. Welcome to this week's KFIR Middle East Update. It's the week of July 10th, and we're going to jump right into what we call our news bites. But first, a reminder, there's more information on our PDF PowerPoint. You can access that at holygroundexplorations.com. So, what's going on in Israel this week? Well, the big question, Joel Rosenberg, I got this from him. He was saying the big question that I'm watching for is this, because we know that this upcoming week, President Biden, is going to Israel and Saudi Arabia. So, Rosenberg says, I think the big question is why? What's he trying to do? What's the groundwork? Is there a major announcement forthcoming? Normalization? Is it the Saudis? With the state of the Biden administration, it seems like there's some major purpose behind this visit. So we're simply going to wait and see. This coalition government that recently failed, and we've got an interim government right now that's led by Prime Minister Yair Lapid. He met for the first time, and in a sense, in 5 years, with Mahmoud Abbas, who happens to be the head of Fatah, Palestinian Authority. And again, the first call from a sitting, I should say, Israeli prime minister and the Palestinian leader. And I don't know what is behind all of this. I don't know what's coming, but it is noteworthy. Now, Biden's tour, very interesting because of the security installations and implications, because he is going to visit outside of Israel. He's going to the other side of the Mount of Olives. This is Palestinian Area A territory. And my understanding is he's requesting no security from the Israelis. And so, again, very noteworthy. Major statement being made. I'm not sure I'm favorable, but the bottom line is, why is he going again? What's he up to? Is there going to be further coercion in terms of a two-state solution? We're going to have to, again, just sort of wait and see. Now, back to Israeli elections. Netanyahu, it appears the most recent poll that I've seen shows that Bibi has 61 seats, which would enable him to form his government. And you can see the details of what this poll indicates. It's polls. That's all I can say. But on the other hand, there's a lot of horse trading and political maneuvering that takes place in Israel leading up to elections. And the fact that there are those that indicate that Bibi does have enough is noteworthy. And then, again, back to Lapid. He met with the French Prime Minister, Macron, and there's some questions and talks with him. Did he indicate that he was open to a Palestinian state? So, that's our news bites for this week. Our articles begin with the situation that we reported on last week, where there were 3 Iranian drones that were launched from Lebanon. And Defense Minister Benny Gantz this Thursday said that these drones were launched by the Lebanese Hezbollah terror group, and they were headed to the Israeli offshore gas field. Again, and by the way, I just got this as well. In another incident, not only last weekend, but last Wednesday, another drone was launched by the terror group, but all of them were downed before reaching their targets. Now, what I've read is that there were no, they were not weapons-loaded drones, but is it just a test? Is it to see what Israel is able to detect? Is it a dry run? Again, another one of those, we'll have to wait and see. We do have a viable, literal threat. Not only is Israel surrounded, not only do we have the Hezbollah in the north, we just talked about these drones, we have the Syrians, and it's really a Russian-Syria alliance that's kind of behind the Golan. We have the Hamas in Gaza, and now, according to Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz, Iran is opening another front against Israel, and this time it's to the direct south in the Red Sea. I'm going to quote Gantz. He says, "Today we can confirm that Iran is methodically basing itself in the Red Sea with warships patrolling the southern region." He goes on to say, in the last month, we've identified the most significant Iranian military presence in that area. And again, just a reminder that this brings back memories of what took place just over 55 years ago when Nasser of Egypt closed the Straits of Tehran, effectively blockading Israel. And so this is not something minor in any way. And with Russia and the north and kind of Israel being closed in on all sides, we've got Israel maybe somewhat distracted with what seems to be reoccurring elections. We do have instability in the political system, and we have an untested, self-absorbed prime minister, centrist. He wants to be seen as a centrist, but truly he's left-oriented. It may be, well, I think it is, a fact that Israel is facing its most serious security situation in decades. And then we have the Russian threats. Again, in a stunning escalation between Russia and Israel, the Russian government has issued a serious condemnation and a warning to Israel that it must stop its airstrikes against Iranian positions in Syria. Gone are the days when Israel was able to freely attack Iranian proxies in the area, in Syria. But now Russia is saying, no more, no longer, knock it off. And so we're getting tensions, not only the whole Ukrainian deal, but we're getting tensions between Russia and Israel. Again, with the current government in place, it is a bit nerve-wracking. Who's going to blink? What will Israel do? Remember, Israel is striking Iranian targets that are seeking to bring in guided missile technology for all of those Hezbollah rockets. And so they've been free up to this point where they detect it, they take it out, and now Russia is saying no more. Then we're on to the church, and we're on to the Presbyterian Church. And I'm sad to announce that in the U.S., Presbyterians last Tuesday, on a vote of 28 for and only 3 against, the Presbyterian Church of the United States of America, an umbrella group representing churches across the country, claiming 1.7 million members, what they do? They pass several anti-Israel resolutions, including one that labeled Israel as an apartheid state and compared Israel's treatment of the Palestinians to the Nazis' treatment of the Jews. And the church has gone out and made the statement also, besides this is nothing new. They have always been somewhat anti-Semitic, but this is noteworthy. And the last quote was the church, Presbyterian Church, also said in all of these statements that have been released that it rejects the doctrines of Christian Zionism and in a sense claims that they are idolatrous and heresy. The Presbyterian Church of the United States of America. question, where's the outrage? Hamas War Crimes. You can read this article. Hamas has living hostages in Gaza, and their health is questionable right now. They're holding out to try to get some sort of prisoner exchange. They also have the bones of Oren Shaul and Hadar Golden, and refuse to release all of these things. The question is where's the outrage to all of this? The media, it's their apparent quest to promote blame Israel first and everything, but they're giving Hamas a free pass, and it's tragic, it's sad, it's heart-wrenching to see what's going on and the demands that they're making to release hostages that are on death's door, and those bones of hostages that parents are just waiting to find a resting place in Israel. But there is no outrage, not in media circles. Last up, stay tuned. Joe Biden actually wrote an op-ed for the Washington Post. He says, next week I'll travel to the Middle East to start a new and more promising chapter of America's engagement there. This trip comes at a vital time for the region. It will advance important American interests. Then, listen carefully, and this is what we've got to inspect, have our ears to the ground, what's really going on. He goes on to say, my administration will continue to increase diplomatic and economic pressure until Iran is ready to return to compliance with the 2015 nuclear deal, as I remain prepared to do. And again, the American president writes all of this in an opinion piece in the Washington Post. So what do we hear from that? We still want a nuclear deal. We're going to hold Iran's feet to the fire, right? Well, this just in. Iran has escalated its uranium enrichment further with the use of advanced machines at its underground Fordow plant. The UN atomic watchdog just released this in a report yesterday. So they must be really shaking in their boots, Joe. So the bottom line, we still don't know. We've got to make our way through the noise, the white noise, the rhetoric. But again, the sons of Issachar, it says in the scriptures, understood the times and knew what Israel should do. In the same way, sons of Issachar today need to understand what truly is happening. And not only just to have the intellect knowledge of what's truly happening, but what should we be doing about it? Unlike the Presbyterian Church, I choose to stand with Israel in this day. I do not believe God is finished, and I do believe that God keeps his promises. He keeps his covenants, especially when they're unconditional. So that's our report for this week. God bless you. Oh, one last thing. We're going back to Israel. Can't wait to get there. We have a tour that's going to be this fall, September 14th through the 23rd. All the information's on our website, holygroundexploration.com. We've got room for 4 or 5 more folks. So please pray about this. And I'm often asked, well, do you have anything for next year? And my response usually is simply this: we don't know if there is a next year. After everything that Israel's been through with COVID, etc., our focus is always on the here and now. And so we're happy to say we're going September. Pray about joining us. God bless you and shalom.